and welcome back to Indiescovery, RPS's indie game podcast. Blimey O'Reilly, is it episode 5 already? And this week, we'd like our listeners to get to know us a little bit better. So we'll be discussing our ultimate favourite indie games, 2 picks per person. The 6 games we've chosen will be given the coveted spot in what we're calling the Indiescovery Vault, a place where only the most prestigious indie games may go, as chosen by the Indiescovery team. Speaking of team, as always, I'm joined by Video Bud Liam.
Blimey O'Reilly. Hello.
It was you at the moment. Guides Lass Rebecca.
Hello.
And me, Reviews Ranger Rachel. We're
Hello.
recording this on a Wednesday, not a Friday, but I feel like the Friday vibes might be kicking at some point.
Rachel, it's Thursday.
Oh, the vibes are wrong.
The vibes.
They're
It's
all
wrong already.
So off.
So
People
close.
are ill. People are
so
going
far.
away.
It was a great intro, though.
It
I
was.
really
It was
enjoyed
a great intro, and I think that
I'll
it was
take it.
It was a great mood setter as well.
Yes, it was. I very much enjoyed that. Oh, I'm so sorry you thought it was Wednesday. Is it better or worse that it's actually Thursday?
Well, I know I've got tomorrow off, so, I mean, me and Rebecca have tomorrow off, so it didn't really matter. It's just I thought
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Who cares what day it is?
everything blends into one.
We're not coming in tomorrow.
Exactly. So yeah, today we'll be talking about our favourite indie games, of only which there'll be 2 per person. So guys, how long did it take you both to decide on your top 2? Or 2 just to talk about today? Like, was it instant or did you kind of have to think about it?
Top
It
2
was
was
instant for me.
Yeah.
All right, okay,
Really?
you're the same then.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, anything beyond 2, I would have really struggled. I had a long list of about 20,
Yes.
but I knew what my
Oh,
top 2
wow.
were straight away. And then if
Incredible.
you'd asked for a third one, I would have been like calling you in the middle of the night in tears, sort of not able to make a decision. So I'm glad we went with 2.
Yeah, 2 felt like the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah.
What about you, Rachel? Did it take you long?
The first one, no, I knew instantly. The second one, I feel like I had like a couple, but then I was like,
oh, right, okay.
but then I don't know, one just pulls away, you know. You're just like, nah, this is the one. So to be fair, it didn't. I thought it would take me ages, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm with you, Rebecca. I think if we'd gone for more than 2, I would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Deep trouble, because
It's the second that you start to do a longer list. I had the same problem last year when we had to do our rankings for Game of the Year. And by the time you get to like 8 or 9, you're putting things like Sonic Frontiers on that list and you're just embarrassing yourself. So
Oh,
yeah,
Liam.
2 was fine. Hey, I
Yeah,
will
you
stand by
are.
Sonic Frontiers.
Hey, it's no shame in loving Sonic Frontiers, and we know you did. So.
I'm not on trial here, but I actually did the opposite with the 2. I thought of 2 immediately and then doubted the second option. And if it wasn't for Rachel being like, slow down, you know your 2, stick with them, let's not go any further, I would have just like probably changed them constantly. But I've gone with my heart choices for the top 2.
Yep.
And also this is a longer exercise, right? Our idea is we'll keep revisiting this idea, we'll keep throwing things in the vault,
yes, the vault.
and eventually create the definitive list of best indie games that cannot be questioned by anyone, not even God, as far as I'm concerned.
God is dead. Also, like,
Wow. 5 minutes in.
Oh, this is all over the place already.
I made the decision to have a caffeinated drink before this, so that
Ooh.
might...
Oh, wow.
I didn't think it would be kicking in as much as it does, but, you know.
I love this. Incredible.
Yeah.
What caffeinated drink did we go for?
Just a coffee, but I looked at, because I obviously got tomorrow off, so that's like a 3-day weekend. I've bought a
Yeah.
relentless energy drink. And I'm
Ooh.
going to chug that at some point. At one point during the weekend, I'm gonna chug it and like play a game, because so I didn't go for that. That could have been worse. I've just gone for some instant coffee, but it could have been a lot worse.
That's amazing. Chugging a random relentless in your own home has big like gremlin energy, and I'm all here for it. It's amazing.
But yeah, so this vault, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know what you guys imagine, but for me it's like this like big almost like comically sized like bank vault that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
golden
Same.
with
Yeah,
the with the what's it called, like a turn handle,
Like a
on it.
valve
Yes,
handle.
exactly, like a
Yeah,
valve.
yeah.
And it's like bigger than my head, and like we have to proper turn it to open it, like, oh. And then we go in, and there's
Yeah.
there's like little categories. Ooh, there's like best indies here. Ooh, maybe horror games here. And right now it's like empty, and it's gonna
Ooh, I
and we're
like
gonna
that.
fill it slowly. That's like the mental image I have of the Indiescovery Vault. Like
I love it.
want it to be.
I like that your mental image was organized, because my mental image was it was just a big empty like pit in the earth, and the idea is that we'll fill it to eventually dive into it like Scrooge McDuck to swim amongst the indie games.
I mean, why not both? I'm sure that we can
That is
combine these
incredible.
two ideas in a way that pleases everyone.
What, so we go in and it's organized, and then we tip them into a pool, effectively.
That's the thing. I imagine one of us holding a physical copy and frisbeeing it into this pit as hard as we can. You are the chosen one. Just into the pit.
I like if by describing it as a pit, we're like undoing the like the prestigiousness of a vault. It's like, oh, this is a vault where your indie game is elevated to greatness. But once it's in there, it's just a big muddy hole in the ground that we throw it into.
Yes.
Chaotic. I love it. Yeah, I also
Exactly.
imagined a big comedy vault.
Mm.
So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Like, it takes all three of us.
Oh yeah, and a golden glow comes out when the door opens, and we're
Yes.
bathed in light.
Oh, I like
Oh.
it.
This vault is fucking amazing.
This is
vault
great.
is the best. So let's talk about our first entry into our Indiescovery Vault. So Liam, why don't we start with you and your first choice?
Oh, am I going first? Well, my first choice is Paradise Killer. Before I start talking about Paradise Killer, Rebecca, have you played this?
I haven't yet. No, I have been told I will adore it, and it is on my list of things to move on to once I've rinsed Danganronpa for all it's worth, because it's kind of in the same vein as I understand it.
Yeah, I think it shares a similar space. My goal of this conversation then is to convince you to play it.
I
as
mean, I
soon
think
as
I
possible.
own it, so I will definitely
Even
play it at
better.
some point. I own it.
yeah.
I only own like 250 games, so I'll get around to it eventually.
In 2053, you'll finally play. So Paradise Killer is by Kaizen Gameworks. It's the first game by that studio. I think they're Scottish. It's a murder mystery that combines visual novel elements within the scope and structure of an open world game. I think it would not be reductive to describe it as an open world Phoenix Wright
Oh,
in
yeah.
many, many ways.
This pleases me.
Oh, this is why I'm like thinking this is a Rebecca game through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to give you a brief summary of the story, you play as a character called Lady Love Dies. You're an investigator who's released from a ridiculously long period of exile to solve a murder on Paradise, which is an island that exists within a pocket dimension. Paradise is ruled by this upper class of people who are immortal and have created Paradise to resurrect dead gods, and they kidnap humans from the real world and then feed on their belief to try and resurrect their gods. But when the island gets infested by demons, they basically kill all the humans, destroy the island, recreate the island, and this has happened 24 times, I think. So you are released from exile when the upper class are murdered behind a locked door, and Paradise has just failed. So it's infested by demons, they've killed all of the humans, and you are let loose on this island to try and solve out who done the murder. And it is absolutely phenomenal. It is so strange as a murder mystery game because it's so unrooted from reality. By setting this mystery in a world that is completely nonsensical, the game is as much about trying to understand the rules of this island as it is to actually find out who killed the upper class. So you can go anywhere, you can talk to anyone. It's a first-person game in a 3D world. The Island of Paradise is very odd. It's got these like crystalline statues that are right next to like Japanese-style little villages, supermarkets, and weird vending machines that shout at you as you walk past. The currency is blood. It's like crystallized blood. All of the characters are really like odd. There's like a hot skeleton who
forgot about him.
is just like, he's like a bartender. There's a goat-headed woman. There's a very attractive Scottish man with robot arms. And yeah, the whole point of the game is to talk to people, find clues, and the sort of like the gimmick of the game is that you can actually end it at any point. And as long as you like can give a case as to who you think did it, the game will accept that and end. So you can initiate the court sequence. You can do it straight away, to be honest. Like as soon as you boot up the game, you can be like, you know what? I know who did it. And you can just present the argument that you were given at the very start. So even though there is a full solution, you don't have to find that if you don't want to. If you think, you know what? I think this is who did it. You can just go present that, and then that can be your ending. But I think the thing I really love about Paradise Killer is the vibes. It is just this beautiful thing to spend time with, It looks like a Dreamcast game directed by Suda51. It has like a distinct visual style that could be loosely described as vaporwave. Character art is beautiful. They're like a bit like Danganronpa. Again, just focusing all of this to Rebecca. The characters are like 2D, like static images in the world, which gives it this really, again, just like amplifies the weirdness. And the music, which is by Barry Epoch Topping, I want to say.
Wow, what a name.
I think it goes by Epoch. Oh, the music is so good. It's like
so good.
Just a mix between like Japanese pop and vaporwave, and like it just feels like a summer holiday constantly. And I think that's why this game, I think the game like really emotionally resonates with me because I played it. I used to run like a little personal YouTube channel where I used to review indie games before I started here. And it was during the pandemic, and I got a review key a few weeks before it came out. And it was over the summer. It was like August 2020. You know, hadn't been out of the house, hadn't had this opportunity to go anywhere. And this game just landed in my lap, and it just felt like the summer holiday that I needed. It was just like this wonderful, warm adventure. And I've got such lasting memories of sitting playing this on my desk, just like on those long, warm summer evenings, just soaking it in. And every time I listen to the soundtrack now, it just really takes me back to that time. And this is just like an absolutely incredible first go by Kaizen Gameworks, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And yeah, God, what a game. It's just one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
It definitely deserves a place in this vault.
Couldn't agree more. Also, well done for summing up what is a batshit crazy story in Paradise Killer.
Yeah.
Like, just like getting to grips with like, how the syndicate works and who is who, and like the history and the, that was a really great summary. I was so impressed. I was like, oh yeah, that does happen, doesn't it? Like,
I had to read a bit about it before. I played through it twice, but even then I had to be like, what? I forgot the word syndicate, for instance, until you've mentioned it. They're the upper class, aren't they? They're called like the syndicate.
I have like a really weird relationship with this game because I played the demo like, half a year before, and I hated the demo. I was like, this is so boisterous. This is so loud. I don't understand what's going on. And then it releases, I play it again, and hands down, one of the best detective games on PC, if not the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If not for another game coming up later. Ooh, hello. But I totally agree with everything you said. Like, it's such a, like, especially for the detective genre, which can be really bogged down. Like, we all love Sherlock, we all love, that kind of character archetype, but this is so refreshing in terms of like we're not in like any sort of like a city where it never stops raining, like an alcoholic like guy just like boozing it up and like, I'm like super intelligent. Like, absolutely not. Paradise Killer is unashamedly queer. It's bright, it's colorful. It's just for the detective genre, it's like nothing I've ever played. Love it. And that soundtrack is banging.
Oh, the soundtrack is so good. It's good. Own it on vinyl, like the wanker that I am. It's just how much I love it. It's just, what a beautiful thing to own on vinyl as well. It just sounds phenomenal.
What's the front cover like? Is it really cute as well? Is it like vaporwave?
I don't think you can see it. It's actually there behind me. So it's not good podcasting. But it's they got an artist to do it in like 90s Japanese anime style. So it's Lady Love Dies in a completely different visual style. And yeah, it has Best Boy Shinji on all of the vinyl as well, who is
of course, yeah.
He's a demon who stalks you throughout the island, has a horrible laugh, is constantly giving you the middle finger, and has a little smiley face over his junk, so you can't see it. It's very
He's got
funny.
his junk out.
All the time. Yeah, what a game. Rebecca, you need to play.
Yeah,
I
you do need to
do.
play
I
it.
mean, I appreciate the personalized recommendation. Everything about this game does sound exactly my sort of thing. Yeah, it was already pretty high on my to play list. It's gone a little higher after this conversation.
Okay,
I've got to admit.
good.
So yeah.
Yeah, the goat lady, Crimson Acid, you're gonna love her. You're gonna love her. She's my favorite.
Crimson
She's
Acid is
incredible,
good.
and I romanced her when I played it.
Oh, okay, nice.
'Cause I was
Romance
like-
options. Could it be any more perfect?
I know. She's in this really cute outfit, and she's like the one who like gives you like kind of inside secrets and all the goss to everyone on the island. And I'm just like, I love you. I love you. And also, she's like the human's idol, right, Liam? She's like they all like worship
Yeah.
her as like an idol, but like idol is also in like the Japanese sense of like a pop idol as well. So I love that kind
Yeah.
of play on words, and yeah, it's really great.
The way that like, faith is represented in the game is really interesting.
Yeah.
So because she's picked by a god to be the human's idol, they give her a goat head. So it's got like that, like almost like Old Testament style religious elements to it, and like there's these huge pyramids where the gods are sleeping, and yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's really like chewy as a game. And like I say, just being like, why do they worship this, or how does this work? Like the game has thought of it and has executed it, and you can just find and discover it and be like, oh, that's weird. That's really odd.
Yeah.
But it's just great fun to do. Just brilliant. I love this game so much. I could talk about it all day, and I do not want to do it. So please, someone else give me their first pick.
Yes, let's move on to Rebecca. Tell us.
Okay. Well, I feel like you came in very eloquent and with a well-made case for your game, and I feel like I've come in just deciding to wing it completely, and now I'm a little bit self-conscious, but let's go for it, because my first pick is Monster Prom. Anyway, so yeah, Monster Prom. Monster Prom is really quite important to me because it is possibly the first really indie game that I played, or that I knowingly played as a very, very indie game. In that I never really paid much attention at the time before I sort of started working in the industry to what was coming out as AAA, what was AA, what was indie. But Monster Prom was something that I started paying attention to because a lot of YouTubers that I like started covering it. And before that, I'd never really paid attention to visual novels or dating sims at all. And now, obviously, they're
okay.
among my favourite things. So I've got
Yeah,
Monster
that's
Prom
so
to thank
surprising.
for getting me into
wow.
all that.
I feel like we're getting some like Rebecca lore. Like this was the
Yeah.
beginning. This was the
Yes.
start of your love affair with visual novels,
Yeah,
queer romances, and all that.
It really was. It was definitely the start of my love affair with visual novels that now it just extends into so many different areas of my life. And
Aw.
yeah, it's hard to look back, even though it was only about 5 years ago, and think about like my first impressions and what got me so hooked. And I think it's fair to say that it was the characterization, because yeah, I was just sort of watching this video because it was a YouTuber that I liked had picked up on this game and was following it, and I don't know, I feel like another bit of Rebecca lore, if you will, is that I would not, I don't know, I don't want to describe myself too much as a snob, but I think I used to be a bit of a graphic snob. In
Really?
my sordid past, I was very, very invested in the ideas of like fully 3D games, things in quite photorealistic environments. And then slowly I got back into more stylistic games through Telltale, and then I started engaging with like preview content for Monster Prom, and I saw how great static images and static sprites could look, and then I was fully in on that sort of level of stylization, and it cured me of my snobbery quick. So I'll say, like, yeah, thank you, Monster Prom, for making me a better person than I was before.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I knew what visual novels were before, but I think the only one that I'd ever really seen was the, did you know that there's a Silent Hill play novel, which is kind of a visual novel of Silent Hill 1?
No.
Oh, this is the Game Boy Advance game, right?
Yeah. And I knew of it, and I was like, it's not great, to be honest, if you've got any access to Silent Hill 1, which I think anyone who has access to that will have. And so that was kind of my impression of visual novels, and it was not a very positive impression. So to go from like having just ignored this whole genre for sort of like the 10 years or whatever since I became aware of that, to seeing this really well produced and like funny and visually appealing dating sim really, really turned my head, obviously, because it's just redirected one of my major interests in such a huge way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a huge thing as well, because Monster Prom is now, the third game came out late last year, I think, the third game in the series. They've got 3 more games planned. So for an indie visual novel, it's become quite a sprawling franchise. And it was actually hard to pick which one I would want to put in our vault, because I think personally the third game is my favourite so far.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed the third game, but I think that for the vault, for the change it made to my tastes, I will put the first one in the vault for now, because also I do think that you gain a lot more appreciation of the characters and the context and the stories if you play from the beginning.
Right, okay.
It's hard to know though when you're done playing Monster Prom, because the whole idea behind it is that every playthrough is only an hour or two, and that you replay it dozens of times to see all the different outcomes and endings, or as many times as you want. I'm sure that if you stop at like 5 or 6, they're not going to be mad at you. But yeah,
True. When you first played it, did you play it multiplayer or like single player? Because that's the cool thing about it, right? It's like a multiplayer.
Yes, yeah. It's the only multiplayer visual novel that I can think of. Certainly, the only officially multiplayer visual novel. I think there might be one or two others, because I think that they actually drew some inspirations from something called the Yerv, not the Yerva. That's Deathloop.
Oh, the Yorg.
The Yorg. Yes, thank you. That is Deathloop. I apologise. It's been a while. It's been a long day.
The Yorg?
Yeah, Y-A-U-G?
Is it A-U-G or
Oh, sorry.
W-G?
Oh, yes, it could be a W, actually.
Which is another game, so I should acknowledge that, is another game that did multiplayer visual novel style adventure game, which was apparently a big influence on Monster Prom.
Oh, okay. Didn't know
but there aren't many games that do this, certainly. And yeah, I generally play Monster Prom in multiplayer, actually. I very rarely play multiplayer games outside of work, but Monster Prom, my partner and I usually play it together because it's just such a fun little thing. It adds an extra level of, I don't know what to say, like, there's a tension to it, but there's also an amusement to it, because the idea is that you and your friends in this multiplayer, it's a dating sim. From the title, you probably guessed, you're trying to date someone at you're all monsters in a high school, you're trying to get a date for the prom. The clue is in the title, and I feel like I'm explaining it a lot when it's pretty clear what the central hook is.
I actually didn't know that was what it was about. I know that sounds really dumb, but I actually didn't realise. Yeah.
It's hard to, it's sort of hard to gauge where people will pick up on the title and what the impression it gives is. But yeah, the idea is you're monsters in a high school. Your characters are trying to find dates for the prom. And the idea is that there is like a competitive element if you're playing it in multiplayer, and so you and your friends might go for the same person. But in practice, what typically happens is there are way more love interests than potential players. And so usually you'll find yourself in a situation where you're interested in different people anyway, and then it becomes quite like a friendly exercise in wingmanning each other.
Oh, wow.
And
That's cool.
occasionally you'll get these things called like weekend events, where your friend's love interest will come up to you and be like, hey, I really like your friend, and like ask a question about them. And you have the choice whether you want to say something really bad about them, and you'll gain like you'll gain the love interest will like then like you a little bit more if you've managed to talk your friend down, but you'll lose some stats, and also like your real life friend who's in the room will like you a little bit less. Or you can talk them up and you get a big stat boost, and like you've been nice to your friend and you're a good person.
Oh, I like how shady that is.
It is quite shady.
That's so fun.
It is great fun. It is a great party game, and it's a surprisingly good party game for a visual novel as well. I've played it, not just my partner and I play it together quite a lot, but I've also played it with friends and with family, and we've always had a really good time.
And you said like rounds take about an hour?
Depending on how fast you read, because if you do a lot of silly voices for it like I do, then it takes ages sometimes.
Love that.
But
Awesome.
yeah, in theory it's like half an hour is a short game. I think 2 hours is the sort of longest game that they estimate. And in the most recent one as well, they've added a save function finally, so you can drop out of your playthrough if it's taking forever. Yeah, it's such a nice series, and the characters are what really make it though in the end. And I'm always so impressed because it did kind of start off with the concept of being like a very spoofy dating sim in that everyone's really hot and the end goal is to get into a situation where you see them like tastefully nude in the perfect ending, and that's kind of the gag. But even from the first demos, it was really clear that the writers at Beautiful Glitch had come to really love those characters and just wanted to give them more time to shine and
that's nice,
more depth to their stories, but to the point where the Monster Prom 3 is no longer really a dating sim, and it still really works. It just shows that they're great character studies, and there are so many characters. There are dozens of characters now to keep track of and to befriend and to follow their stories through. And like the more you play, because it can all happen in a fairly non-linear way, because it's all these short runs that you do over and over again, you really feel like you're getting to know the characters. Unsurprisingly, there's quite a large fan base around it, because it's exactly the sort of thing that attracts a large and devoted fan base.
Yes.
That is my case for Monster Prom, is it is a truly delightful game that might change the direction of your hobbies forever. It turns out.
I think that was a very beautiful way of summarizing a game that, like you say, it literally changed your outlook on a medium as a whole. Like,
yeah, it really did.
I've heard, it's wild. And I've heard so many good things about it, but I've never played it. But for some reason, now knowing that it's like a multiplayer game that's quite short, I can totally imagine like bringing some friends round and all of us just like trying to date hot monsters. Like that does sound like a fun thing.
It's so fun.
And the fact that it is only like an hour, it sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I've played it with my mum. It's probably not something you would do. Not everyone's mum would want to play it, but my mum loved it.
Yeah, that's good. The second you said tasteful nudes, I was like, maybe I won't like play that over Christmas with the fam.
You learn which ending path you're on, and you can sort of steer it away from that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair
like,
enough.
let's not worry too much about that.
But we talk about like being a bit snobby. Like, I think my little bit of snobbiness is party games. Like, I just don't really consider them, like, I don't really play a lot of them. Like, multiplayer, that's fine, but like stuff that's like a good party game, like I just for some reason I'm just like, they're not on the same level as anything with like a story or whatever. That's me though. But this sounds like a really good combo of the best of both worlds. Like, I like the characters and the story sounds good. Instead of like I think it's just the mini game aspect of like most party games, which I just feel like I don't get along with. I'd rather play something like It Takes Two or A Way Out if I'm going to play together with someone. But yeah, this sounds amazing. So let's open the vault. Place it on the shelf.
Into the pit.
Flick it.
I think maybe we need do we need to do that thing where it's like you get one copy for display and one to use, and so there's one copy that goes into the shelving unit, and then another copy goes into the pit that we're going to then swim around in.
Yes, I like that idea. A display case.
Yeah.
Oh, or just like a poster or something, and that, you know what? It's doesn't really matter.
I like it
though. I was like, it doesn't really matter, and then immediately was like, no, it does. It does matter.
It does matter. Yeah, one copy to be put into the beautiful display case, and one for Liam's pit. He's just in the pit. Throw him a copy of Monster Prom, and he's happy.
You've claimed the pit. The pit is yours. You can have the pit. My games will be over here in the glass cabinet.
Poor Rebecca's just like, what are you both doing?
Oh no, I'm just trying to decide whether I want to suggest that is the pit like a pool party with the characters from these games, or is it just copies of the games? What is the composition of the pit?
That sounds better. In my mind, it's literally just a mud pit, and I'm just sat at the bottom of it covered in mud. Like, it's
what's
just
that?
full goblin
What's that
mode.
video of the baby covered in peanut butter? That's you. That's you.
me. Yeah.
Oh, no.
But I do have that energy as a person. So yeah, maybe that is me.
Yeah, in your mud pit, surrounded by all your very well curated indie games. If I do say
Incredible
so.
indie games. Yes. Top tier. Rachel, what's your first pick?
My first pick is Return of the Obra Dinn. Oh, how does the song go? I was going to sing it. No!
Is it
How does it
quite
go?
jaunty, isn't it?
Oh my god, I can't even sing it. Never mind. No, it's gone. It's gone. Anyway, I'll talk. Instead of trying to remember the song, I'll actually maybe talk about the game. Right, Return of the Obra Dinn. So we've already talked about one, pretty incredible detective game. I would say Return of the Obra Dinn is probably, if there was like a competition or a knockout for like best indie detective game, Obra Dinn and Paradise Killer would be the top two. Like
The final bracket.
yes, exactly. Like these two games are phenomenal, and for me, Obra Dinn slips in just ahead, just because it came out before. I've just played it for longer. I've played it so many times. I just think it's just a stonking good detective game. So yeah, a little bit about what it's about. You basically play as, it's like 18th century Europe. You play as an insurance representative of an insurance company, and you. The story is so bizarre. Basically, a merchant ship called the Obra Dinn has come into shore that recently disappeared for like 2 years. It's now at shore. All the crew are dead. There's no one on board. So you, as an insurance person, are tasked with going on board and finding out what happened to these 60 crew members that were aboard this ghost ship, and what their names were, and what happened to them. And so the entire game is you basically solving 60 mini investigations. Yeah, basically what their name is and what happened to them, whether they died, disappeared, left the boat, that kind of stuff. And how this plays out is the ship is entirely explorable. You can go from the top deck, mid deck, lower decks. You'll come across certain points in which, like, there'll be a body or something. And you, on your person, you're given a journal with the whole crew list, and a photo, but their faces are blurred out, and a mysterious pocket watch. When you then approach like a place where a body has been, the pocket watch will like kind of like tingle. You'll activate that, and then you're sent back in time to the moment of death or disappearance of that person and what happened to them. And it's just such a bizarre, weird idea for a detective game that I just honestly think is so cool. So yeah, these 60 different vignettes, I'll call them. You'll go back in time. The screen will be black, and you'll listen to a short clip of like audio clip of someone saying something, basically the audio of the moment of death. And then on screen, the art style is kind of like you're in a 3D space. So there'll be a frozen moment in time when this person, whatever happened to them, and you're free to explore that space. Looking at the person from different angles, looking at the floor, looking at who was there, what was happening. And slowly over a period of like, I don't know, I finished it in maybe like 6 hours. You'll finish the game with like a notebook, hopefully filled out with what happened to these 60 people on this ship. And yeah, that's it. It's great. I love it so much. I think what it has in common with Paradise Killer, which I think makes these two detective games really good, is that it kind of leaves you alone. Like, here's what you're doing.
Right, okay.
Here's your goal. Now go do it. There's no story kind of pushing you forward. Like, everything that happens, you find, you initiate. It's very much like everything's happened. The Return of the Obra Dinn is a cold case. Like, these people aren't coming back. It's been years. So it's just you and the ship and you exploring it. And I just think that's such, a great puzzle. Like, it's just like a puzzle box for you at your own pace to work out. instead of like, I don't know, in different like detective games, it's always like, oh, if you're interrogating someone, there's only these options. There's like, only a certain number of, who could have done it. And it's usually fairly obvious. Or, oh, can you ask them a certain number of questions? Like, it's all very railroady. Paradise Killer and Return to the Obra Dinn just leave you. They're just like, off you go. See you in 6 hours. Hopefully you'll solve the case or not. Obra Dinn is similar in that you can finish the game without working out any of like what happened to any of them. Kind of like with Paradise Killer when you're like, I'm done now.
Right.
Obra Dinn is the same. And I'm just, have you both played it or not played it? Who's played it?
I haven't. I don't know how I haven't, because I have had it owned and installed since about the time it was released, and I still haven't managed to get it to line up quite right, because I think part of it is there's so many people I want to play it with.
Oh, really?
And like that is just trying to get everyone together. Because I love mysteries. My partner, my dad both love mystery as well.
Oh
so
my God.
my feeling has always been we should all settle around at some point and work on it together. And pandemic, etc., and moving around the country, and it's just never really lined up, but it is one I am extremely excited to play at some point.
That's interesting that you want to play it with other people, because for me, I also had that thought. I was like, maybe I'll play it with my partner. But it becomes apparent quite quickly that, I don't know, there was something for me that I just wanted to do it on my own, notebook in hand.
Oh, interesting.
Like walking around. Because the thing about it is, you'll deduce things that other people will miss, and maybe that's useful, but for me, there's just something about sitting down on my own, headphones on, with a and you will need a notebook and a pen. You cannot like solve this game without a detective's two most trusty tools. But this is the other thing that's really cool about it. Like I said, like you'll notice things, and the way that you deduce what happened to these people is like, it really is detective work. Like, okay, so to work out who this person is, I need to work out who they were on the ship. Were they the chef? Were they the bosun? Were they top people? Were they the captain? And so in these vignettes, when you have to like look around, you're looking at uniforms. What items do they have? Where on the ship are they? Because obviously low-key people aren't going to be in the captain's quarters. Like the accents, because your document of everyone has where they're from. And so that audio clue of like, right, accents. There's 4 Russians on this boat, and Jesus God, I could not work out which Russian was who for the longest time. Like there are just so many like social, like little clues that the game just plonks, and if you notice them, you do. If you don't, you don't. And I just think that's so smart. I like feeling like I'm actively solving things on my own.
Yeah.
Like I don't like it when detective games give me stuff. Like LA Noir's like dun dun, like when you hold an item. I'm currently holding my mouse and I'm like moving it weirdly, and then when you find the right
purely with the wrist,
and then when you find something, it zooms in. Absolutely not. Like this game is just like, and another really interesting thing about it is, so the way that you fill out this document is you there's drop down boxes. Everyone has a profile. Drop down box with the whole crew. You pick that drop down box with a ridiculous number of like options. If they like jumped overboard, if they got stabbed, how did they get stabbed? Like you have to be very, like you can't bluff your way through the game is what I'm trying to say.
Right, okay.
But when you think you've got one right, the game won't immediately tell you. You have to get 3 people right in a row for the game to confirm those 3.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really smart because 1, people can't just like blast through the game, and 2, there is a certain aspect of process of elimination. Like there are some people you will not get unless you work out, right, so those 3 Russians I've got, so this 4th one must be this guy. Right, there's 3 women on the ship. I've identified 2 of them. She has a wedding ring, so she's Mrs. in the dossier. Like the amount of mental gymnastics like you have to do to kind of work out who's who. Right, he mentioned, so there's like 3 people, like he doesn't like being with the animals, but this guy grew up on a farm, so it can't be him. Oh, okay, this guy's in the captain's quarters, so he must be kind of high up. Right, his surname matches her surname. They must be married. Like, it's honestly really good. The amount of like effort, I think effort is just the way to say it. Like, I've not put more thinking power into any sort of mystery puzzle game than Return of the Obra Dinn. Like, it just inspires it within you. Like, you're just like, no one's gonna solve this but me, so I better get to it. Like, that's just how it is.
Here's my question for you, because I haven't played it, and I'm aware it's a huge blind spot for me, and I think I know that if I did get into it, I'd love it. But it feels too smart for me. I think I'm too much of a big dumb baby to be able to do it. Is it difficult? Or is it literally just a case of if you just stick with it, eventually you'll uncover the answers naturally through play?
So you can play the whole game beginning to end. You can see all the story. You can see all the wild shit that happens in it. Each profile has a difficulty level represented in triangles, like little upside down triangles. You can do all the easy people first and leave the people with like 3 triangles till the very end. Because the game is basically telling you, you will not get these until you've gotten these people first. So that
it's like human Sudoku.
Yes. It is, exactly. Human Sudoku. Like, so the game kind of helps you in that respect. It's like, start with these people and then go to these people and then finish with these people. And the way that it onboards you, pun intended, to like the way that you solve these mysteries is very accessible. Like the first person and second person are very straightforward. And so you find yourself kind of like the game is teaching you and you are becoming smarter, and it will teach you what to look out for with different profiles and the order they're based in. So you're like, right,
interesting.
These people are coming up. They have accents. Like, who am I listening to? Right. Was that a gunshot in the background? Right. So a gun is involved somehow. And so the onboarding is very accessible. So you're not too dumb. You'll be fine. And even if you don't solve it all, the story is so good. Like, it's very much based on like the gossip of sailors, like what's in the ocean, what's out at sea. And so you have your obvious ones, like a certain big monster from the deep. But I don't even know how to describe it. It takes a turn about halfway through. And I honestly could not believe what I was looking at. The art style of the game is very, not 8-bit. What's the one below that?
Isn't it like 1-bit?
Yes.
Isn't that what he describes it as?
1-bit two-tone, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
The game looks incredible. But because of that, there's a bit that happens halfway through, and I remember just staring at the screen being like, trying to work out what I was looking at. And just for that alone, like, that doesn't require you being smart. The game, that's part of the story. So you just see that nothing is locked away behind closed doors if you do not know how to finish the game. Like, if you don't get everyone.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can go in, literally don't fill anyone out, play the whole game and be like, that was a great story about a group of people and who I'll never know what happened to them. And that's okay. Like, the game is...
Damn.
The game is good. The game is great. I love it so
right.
much.
You've convinced me. Throw it in the pit. I will play it immediately.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm such a big fan. Like, fan gamers sell the actual like physical dossier you can buy. And I've got one because I was like, I want a physical copy of this. Let me get it. I'm gonna show you.
Yeah, please get it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
for the listeners at home, I'll describe it. Rachel has brought a small. Oh, that is a little dossier. You're right. That's gorgeous.
That's so cute.
And then,
look at that.
What's really cool about it is, so you get your little map. So I got a map here.
Oh yeah.
So these are in the game as well. This is how you work out stuff. So there's the map, and here is a detailed.
Oh, it's the ship.
The ship.
Oh.
And whose office is who. So right, the second mate, fourth mate. Right, so if they're all sleeping and you see someone sleeping in the first mate's room, you're like, right, that's the first mate. So this is really important as well. And then you also have here's the list of the crew.
Oh my God.
60 people.
That's
and then
so many
you're
people.
also given photographs. Look at this one, a bit ominous, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy. But yeah, it's a really good game. It's a great detective game. I'm really happy that we've got that and Paradise Killer because, there we go.
I must play it. I must. It's just like
I must.
Why did I say that like
I must
that?
play it. I must.
I must play it. Post haste.
I must post haste.
I'm losing my mind. My brain is foggy.
Blame it on the lemsip. Blame it on the lemsip.
That's a brilliant pick, Rachel. That
Oh, I love it so much.
Yes.
need to play it.
Should also probably mention, I believe it was the RPS 100 #1 game last year when we all voted on our favourite games on PC. So
there it is. Well, there you go. If that's
Even
the
more
whole
reason.
team's decision. Oh, by the way, it's a Lucas Pope game. Gotta give shout outs to Lucas Pope.
Yeah.
Who is incredible. Doing that after Papers, Please. How dare you have that much talent?
I know,
Like,
right?
I can't believe it.
Sole developer as well.
I
Like,
know.
incredible.
See, I think we can agree that is indie. I mean, we'll talk down the line about where you draw the line in what indies are, but solo developers are doing incredible work. And,
100%.
Don't know how
Yeah,
to
to
have the
make
focus.
freaking Obra Dinn.
Yeah. I'd be too busy eating beans.
Incredible.
Should we circle back to the beginning with Liam?
Oh, time to throw another game in the pit. My next game is another sort of detective game with similar vibes to Paradise Killer. It's Hypnospace Outlaw.
Must get it. I must. That really cracked me up. That really fucking cracked me up. Jane Austen out here.
Yeah, it's giving Southern Belle. It's giving...
Does anyone else feel like they were just raised by TV and that their frame of reference and the way they speak just flies around everywhere because of that? Just
Yes,
suddenly you'll
literally.
end up in a different part of the world with the way you express one thought. Yeah.
We're watching The Simpsons at the moment, which Yollie's never seen properly before.
Oh,
and,
right.
like, every episode I'm like, oh, that's where I got that from.
Yeah,
Oh, that's where I got
I'm
that
also
from.
rewatching The Simpsons at the moment for the first
Oh,
time
yeah.
in about 15 years. And
Yeah.
it's you don't realise if you're a child of the 90s, you just think about it every day.
All the
Multiple
time.
levels.
Simpsons is amazing.
Yeah.
Most of my understanding of the world is from between seasons 3 and 8, I think. It's
Hell yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh, that's the golden ones, right?
Damn right.
I'm on season 20 at the moment, so we're into the rough era.
I
But
would give up quite quick.
it's still just so, I don't know, it's just something nice to have on in the background, and it's just got to the
Yeah.
point where they switched to HD and like all the animations have become really smooth, and it's just like visually what they were doing in that season was such a treat.
Yeah. See,
Anyway,
I don't like the modern visuals.
I
was-
get it. Sorry, I've totally derailed us from.
No. Right, okay, anyway, what we're talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
Do not apologise. Hypnospace Outlaw, it's another detective game, but I guess it's more so like an interactive narrative game. I think even though there is a mystery at the centre of it, and the conclusion to the game, you know, you will find out a conclusion to a mystery before the credits roll. It's not the most important part. The most important part of the game is just immersing yourself in this game. And a bit like Paradise Killer, it's about sort of understanding the world you're in and the people who are within it, and sort of like how the rules and this society operates. So Hypnospace Outlaw puts you in the shoes of a moderator on an alternate reality version of the internet circa 1999. This version of the internet, Hypnospace, is accessed via a headband while you sleep. And you are given access to basically a computer as they were in the 90s. So it has a full desktop UI. You can bring up all of these different applications like music players and post-it notes. You can change your background. You can get like a little desktop buddy, a little hamster that will poo constantly and die if you don't feed it. But the majority of the game is set within the Hypnospace browser, which it lets you access the internet. And the internet in this game is split into distinct zones, a bit like the internet of the time. So you have things like Teentopia, where all the teens hang out and all of the brands made for teens exist. And you have, I think it's called Good Time Valley, which is where all the slightly right-wing old people go on to talk about the good old days of, I guess, the 50s and 60s, because it's set in the 90s. And there's like a conspiracy zone where people talk about tennis, because it's an alternate reality world. everything is so displaced from what we know, but it's still familiar. So in the conspiracy zone, people are like, did you know that there's a type of tennis where only 2 people play and not 3 people? It's really weird. Where's that happening? And this sort of like alternate reality side of it is what really appealed to me at first. So, you know, there's a game called Squishes, which is where you collect cute monsters, except they're all horrible and gooey. And there's a website for Boppo's fried meats instead of McDonald's. And the greatest treat is Granny Cream's hot butter ice cream, which has like a horrible theme tune.
Granny Cream's hot butter ice cream. We take the hot butter, mix it with the ice cream, freeze it up cool, you can see it on your screen. Put it in your microwave, make it real hot like a soup or a dip. We call it heat and sip.
But the deeper you dig, the more you realize just how much they've thought about this alternate reality version of the internet. Because they even have music, like an entire like lineage of music that is made up just for Hypnospace. So there's an entire genre called cool punk, which samples in the reality of Hypnospace a advert for a brand of soda called Gray's Peak, and then people have made like a bunch of music about it, and Gray's Peak is back, and you sort of start to just like piece together this world and how it hangs together, and then you start to see the people, because all these people have their own individual pages, and they all look like GeoCities pages. They're all full of GIFs and spelling mistakes, and some of them aren't finished, and they have under construction signs. And you start off basically moderating it. So you get emails through your email client, and it says, oh, the rights holder of this cartoon character from the 50s doesn't want it on Hypnospace, so can you please go around and ban all the people who are putting it on their pages? And you report violations as you go through all these pages, and then the people react to you slowly, and they'll start to be like, Hypnospace is censoring us, we want to use this image, why aren't you letting us do it? Or, I'm really sorry, I bullied this person, I won't do it again. And it takes place over 3 days. Merchant Soft, who's the company who owns Hypnospace, is going to push out a year 2000 update, and to say anything else would be a spoiler. To immerse yourself in this game is an experience like none other. And once again, like Paradise Killer, I'm going to say the music is incredible. This game is by a company called Tendershoot, which I think is just a collection of a couple of developers. But the creative director is a guy called Jay Tholen. Really interesting guy. And majority of the music is made just by him. And I interviewed him.
Oh, yeah?
I think it was a few years ago, just before the game came out, or maybe 6 months before the game came out. And at one point, he just turned to me and said, I need to start making the rest of the game, because right now it's mainly music. Like, he really throws himself in to the music side. All of his music's like really interesting, sort of like gloopy and weird and sort of like not like anything from the real world. And then he's teamed up with a bunch of other people. So there's an internet comedian called Hot Dad. He does a lot of music in the game as a character called the Chowder Man.
Oh, yeah.
And the Chowder Man's like a Kid Rock sort of like sleazy guy. But he does a song called Ready to Shave, it's literally a song about shaving. It's like an 8-minute rock epic that is absolutely brilliant. It's so good.
Hell yeah.
There's just a lot to discover in this game. And also, it's a bit like Her Story, in the sense that you got to try and uncover secrets and progress the story by searching for things. So a lot of pages aren't listed. You can't get to them through directories. You either need to find hyperlinks, or you need to just search for search terms. So if someone mentions someone's name, shout out to this user who let me hack into Hypnospace's servers, you might be able to search their name and find them. And it just continues from there. And it's available on everything. It's best on PC because it gives you that tactile interface. Typing on a keyboard, you type it in the game. Goodness me, I love this game.
Yes.
Again, just like absolutely incredible. One of my fondest possessions was the publisher sent me a promo copy when the game came out. That's done like an AOL free trial disc.
Oh my god, that's so
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I even have the headband as well that they wear. That Fangamer. Again, shout out to Fangamer, I guess.
Fangamer,
who's
doing that
making the
merch.
products that we want to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just phenomenal game. I'm overdue a replay, and the new one might come out this year, Dream Settler, which we spoke about on
Yes.
another podcast.
We did.
So yeah, Hypnospace, it's good.
Yes, I remember playing it and just being, I think there's something really cool about like Her Story and Hypnospace about being on a PC playing it
Yeah.
because like you said, it's so tactile, like having your mouse like move around, or like I'm pretty sure on Hypnospace you can you can download pets, which is, I remember the hamster, which has like little wings and flies around your screen,
Yeah,
and it poops everywhere. Or like you can download like a virus, like fake virus
Yeah.
situation. It's just, or like really like crusty MP3s that you can play on your MP3 player. Like it just has that nostalgia attached to it that it's
Yeah,
kind of
it
like
does.
Emily Is Away in that respect. You know, like Emily Is Away had like that whole YouTube, like when you
Yeah.
click on it, it would all have like pop out. Oh, I just love, I love fake desktops in games. They're great.
Same.
They're honestly incredible.
Yeah.
So good.
And Goober's the one, right? Goober is the fish, which you have to go around.
Oh yeah, yes, Detective Goober or
Detective
whatever.
Gooper
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
Gooper, that's it. Yeah,
Goop-
and like
is it- yeah,
everyone
Gooper?
gets so angry that you're banning Gooper from, and then they use him as like a symbol of the rebellion against
Yeah.
Merchant Soft. And
But that's the cool thing about it, right? Because like there's people using this image on their personal websites. So this idea about like IP and, you know, corporate property that just wasn't a thing back then. And
Yeah.
like you have to make those decisions, right? So like there's gifs of Goober who's like got his like little magnifying glass and little hat. So obviously that's an IP. But there's also fan art, like someone's drawn Gooper and uploaded it, and you have to make the decision like, is that, you know, a breach of the owner's copyright? And I don't know how much it affects the story. Again, I also played it ages ago, well due for a replay. But those kind of decisions and that era of the internet where everything was just fair game. Like you could just
Yeah.
right click, steal that, right click, got that, download this. Like that freedom is something that
Yeah.
I think the game captures really well. That like early 2000s, the Wild West of
Yes.
I think that's what I called it
Yeah,
last episode, like
absolutely.
the Wild West of online.
Yes,
That's-
it's such an artifact of the past as well, because
Yes.
like that is the internet
Yeah.
that we all grew up on, but presumably young people today won't really have any experience of that, because there's a much greater sense of everything online being kind of interconnected, and the idea that if you do something like that, then the IP holder has a good chance of seeing it,
yeah,
which is a hugely different scenario from what we kind of grew up with. And I once again, I have not played this game, but it does sound incredibly fascinating.
I think you'd like it a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah, I'm sure that I would
Yeah.
for the nostalgia factor alone, and also because once again that just sort of like dropping you into a lightly guided but rather sandboxy world and letting you like poke around in it is it's fantastic.
I really wish the game would let you create your own website. Like I was like, if that's like a DLC or maybe in Dream Settler, like I just want to have like that ability to create the most gaudy ass website ever again, where you have like, I don't know, like red hot clip art, like word clip art, and in the background
Yeah.
it's like neon green, and it just hurts your eyes to look
Oh
at.
yes.
Like I
So
want
many
want
gifs.
stuff like that. God
So you
damn it.
can build pages in Hypnospace.
Can
but
you?
It's an external tool that like comes bundled with the game.
Ah.
But I would love it in Dream Settler if it was like baked into the actual game itself.
Mm.
Like there was just a way of like a free webs equivalent or something silly like that, right? Like
Yes.
yeah, you can make your own website, but it's got like big. This user has not bought premium banners like across the top or whatever.
Yes.
Oh
That'd
wow.
be great.
Like really crusty music that plays when you like when someone comes on my
Yeah.
website.
Really
Anything.
relive my days of like early 2000s MySpace by having Damien Rice's The Elephants Are Gone playing on my Game Boy custom HTML page. Yeah, because I'm like 13, but I'm like really deep. So, you know, I really like Damien Rice because he sings about sad things.
Feels. All I think of
Feels.
feels.
So
13-year-old
many
feels.
feels.
Oh.
Right, I'm excited about this next one,
No, okay.
Rebecca. I'm excited. So can you please tell us what your second pick is?
Sure thing. My second pick for the Indiescovery Indie Vault is Firewatch. Firewatch is a lovely, delightful 2016 game by Campo Santo, which is an independent team formed by people who previously worked on Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1, I believe. A little bit of a tie-in to our last episode. It is of the genre that is sometimes semi-disparagingly called walking sims. And just for the record, I think walking sims are really, really nice.
Hell yeah.
Along with things like visual novels, they are, for me, they really encapsulate what you can do really well on an indie budget. Firewatch is one that I only really recently came to appreciate just how much I actually love this game, because it's kind of it's like a low-key favourite, if that makes sense. I cannot point to any moment playing this game when I was like, oh my god, this is one of my favourite games now. But the more I look back on it, the more I'm like, I just have so much fondness for this game and what it's doing. And I played it in a bit of a spree of walking sim type games. So I played What Remains of Edith Finch and Gone Home and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and The Suicide of Rachel Foster, which is the only bad one in that lot. I mean, actually, to be fair, The Suicide of Rachel Foster has it has a brilliant, brilliant atmosphere and design, and the story is dreadful.
Garbage.
Sorry to just do a drive-by on another game, but I do feel quite strongly about this. It is a really visually great game, and they really should have run that story by somebody before they published it. But anyway, we're talking about Firewatch, which of all of those is my absolute favourite. So Firewatch, the basic story is a guy called Henry. We decided Henry or Hank, both are acceptable, as we established last week. And it starts off as sort of like it kind of starts off a little bit like a visual novel, actually, because you're just given some text prompts to kind of choose his backstory a little bit. But the general gist is he was, I believe, a student or an academic, and he met another academic at his university. They fell in love, got married. You get to have these sweet little moments in their relationship. And then when they're in their early 40s, she gets diagnosed with early onset dementia. And her family make the decision to take her back to Australia, where she's from, to take care of her, which leaves Henry kind of in this weird position. You never really get much of a sense of why the family kind of swoop in and go, oh yeah, we're taking your wife now. But you get the feeling that there's a pretty good reason, from their point of view at least, for doing this. And it kind of leaves Henry in the States with not much idea of what he's going to do next. And obviously just very distressed, because this is one of those life situations that can happen, but no one is ever really braced for these kind of outlying cases to become part of their life. And so what Henry does when you get into kind of the main story, the story that you as the player are physically present for, is Henry has decided to take a summer job as I wish I could remember, is it a fire watcher? It would have been really good if I could remember the word for it, but is it just like
a park ranger?
He's a kind of park ranger, but very specifically his job is to go into the middle of the Shoshone National Forest for, I think, 8 or 12 weeks over the summer during the wildfire period, and just sit in this watchtower and watch for fires. And that is the entire thing. He's kind of in the middle of nowhere. He's communicating with other watchtower occupants. I'm gonna maybe stick with that via radio, but he is physically alone all day every day for this several week period. And the kind of main story of the game is kind of twofold. Part of it is his relationship with a woman named Delilah, who is in the next watchtower over, who is also his supervisor, and their communications and the way their relationship develops purely over this radio connection. And another part of the story is this mystery that unfolds surrounding the person who occupied the watchtower previous to Henry getting there. And I really don't want to talk about the story too much, because it is a really good story, and I think it's well worth, if you've not played it, experiencing it for yourself.
We love a mystery game at RPS. Yeah. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, we have a type, don't we?
Yeah. Us three love a mystery detective game, but even like the RPS, like
as a
the
team,
squad in general.
very, very into
love,
mystery
yeah.
games. Even like Firewatch and Hypnospace Outlaw, which you wouldn't immediately necessarily
Yes.
tag as mystery games, are really, when you get down to it, they're mystery games.
Yeah.
And yeah, Firewatch has this sort of like, the thing is, it's a story that you want to talk about, but if you talk about it too much, you ruin it. So I'm going to try and not actually give any details. But it's a very cool thriller, and it's about isolation, and it's about paranoia. And it's also about boredom, I think, quite a lot, because they're in this beautiful place, but they've got nothing. They're not even really meant to leave their watchtower all that much unless there is a solid reason for doing so. But you can, and that brings me to my favourite thing about Firewatch. The thing that I think elevates it above the other walking sims that I mentioned that I played is that you can just run around in what I think is something like a realistically rendered 2 square mile area of this national park that the character is in. You can pretty much go anywhere in it pretty freely and explore the area and hike around it, and the game won't tell you off, even though within the narrative you're meant to only be leaving under certain circumstances, but the game does let you just wander around and explore and enjoy it. The only things it will really stop you from doing is stumbling into the story too early. There was a free post-launch DLC that came out that does just let you continue to explore the area and find any like little secrets that you haven't found. And more games should do that. I would say all games should do that, in my opinion.
Yes.
Just every single game needs to let you just wander around in its world and appreciate all the little details that sometimes you are rushed through in the course of the story. And the fact that Firewatch, actually, I spent, again, sort of over the course of lockdowns, a lot of time just wandering around in Firewatch because it is such a beautifully rendered world, and it is incredible. The level of detail. Most of the secrets that you find aren't tied into achievements or anything. They're just there for you to appreciate and enjoy. And it is such an interesting, especially I think for people who were in that situation where we were kind of stuck in our houses for 2 years or whatever. That fantasy of escape is so present, and then is really tied in to the character situation, Henry's situation, where he, makes this choice to go and be in the middle of nowhere and kind of not face up to the difficulties of real life. It resonated a lot in lockdown, I think. Even though I played it before lockdown, I replayed it in lockdown. It resonated a lot, despite being like the entirely opposite situation almost.
Yeah.
But long story short on all this is it's one of my favourite games. If not top 10, then definitely top 20 all-time favourite games, just because I want to live in that world, I want to just experience that world over and over again. And if it wasn't attached to a great story, I would still be fascinated by it, but it is attached to a great story, which is a delightful bonus.
It is absolutely one of the best rendered forests in video games, despite not being photorealistic.
Yeah,
Indeed,
1000%.
indeed.
The relationship between Henry and Delilah, again, one of the best in video games. I think the way those two characters interact, the way you're able to choose your responses on the radio when she talks to you is incredible. I whenever I think about this game, I just feel very warm. It's just such a lovely thing to spend time with, and you can finish it in a day. And I would maybe recommend finishing it in one go as well, because I think it's
I'd agree.
Yes.
With that.
beautiful story to see in its entirety.
A lot of walking sim style games are really best enjoyed in a single sitting in your first playthrough, and that is what I've done with a lot of the games that I mentioned there. I think Firewatch I might have actually played over 2 or 3 days, but still it's that short compressed time span which almost makes you feel like you're living, because of walking sim first person point of view, you are seeing things through the character's eyes, and if you can kind of live it in real time, it does add something as well, I think, to the experience.
Yes,
Absolutely.
What appealed to me about Firewatch is it's a stunning looking game, amazing. But
It's
like
so
you
beautiful.
touched upon it, Rebecca. It touches upon like there's a certain kind of person who would take this kind of job, and Henry's situation obviously is very like upsetting, but it's also in the fact that he finds solace in this stranger through a radio wave, and it's funny because they both kind of acknowledge the situation he's in what is quite a wholesome and cute way, because she's definitely like, what are you doing here? Like, everyone who takes this job does it for a reason. Like, not anyone could just be on their own for 6 months or for a summer, just like isolated with nothing much to do, because nothing really does happen usually. So yeah, I think their communication and that cute acknowledgement makes it a really, really nice game. It's just fun to talk to someone in that way. Like, they joke around a bit, and she like teases him about stuff and he teases back. Like, I just think that relationship is done so well. The characters are written so well. I think it's a great character study for like someone who is both melancholy but also is looking for a new lease on life, but not so corny. Henry's great. Love him. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as well. I like Henry. I like Delilah a lot, but I think I potentially like Henry even better, just because there is this sense of Henry as someone who has not acted well by making the decision to kind of isolate himself. But then you look at his situation, like, what else was he really supposed to do?
Yeah.
He's in this situation that no one is prepared for, especially not at 39. Not expecting this to happen, and he is kind of left with nowhere to go. And the more you think about it, the more you you do come to sympathize with his situation, because there's just this sense of like, you have this duty to behave in a certain way, and like your spouse is sick, and obviously like you feel like there's obvious things you have to do, except in this particular edge case, your spouse increasingly doesn't know who you are, and so at that point, what are your obligations? And it throughout, I think, and it contrasts so well with the fact that you spend a lot of time just like looking at these beautiful things and contemplating nature in solitude, and you don't get a lot of Henry's interior thoughts. It's mostly his conversations with Delilah that express how he's feeling, and that's not all necessarily true. But it does help. Again, it helps you embody the character, because you'll just be having these quiet moments where you'll be looking, like this beautiful streamlet running through a ravine or something, and you'll think there is this real life that this character is just putting off going back to, because it's so painful and so uncertain, and it doesn't really lead you to any conclusions, but it just does demonstrate that situation, I think, really effectively. And even though there are a lot of games at the moment about mental health, I think it takes an angle that many of those games don't.
It's a very subtle and mature game in that sense. I think it sort of touches on a lot of things in a way that's really nice. Henry, it's easy to not see Henry as a sympathetic character, but you'd be hard pressed not to love him by the end despite his faults. And I think any game that can create a character like that,
absolutely,
it is worthy of the Vault, in my opinion, is what I will say.
Yes. I mean, it's easy in a way to write a character who's just a shining paragon of every virtue. It is a lot harder to create a character who is a human character who you sympathise with. Yeah.
And it's a shame that Campo Santo gets absorbed by Valve after this.
Absolutely. And In the Valley of Gods is still up in the air, 9 years later or whatever it is.
Is it still?
Since they announced it.
Oh my God.
But my hot take is, from what I understand, the team that make Firewatch, they make the next Half-Life. They are the people who are leading the narrative design with Half-Life Alyx.
Ooh.
And that game has a lot of Firewatch's DNA in it. Not only is it a lot about reflective and contemplative, looking out at beautiful vistas, you're constantly chatting to people over a radio in a way that feels like tonally very similar to some of the lighter conversations you have with Delilah. And I think you can see that narrative link between the two. So on the one hand, yes, we might never get In the Valley of the Gods, this, follow-up to Firewatch, but the people who make one of the best narrative games ever made go on to basically revive Half-Life. And for me personally, that's good. Like, I benefited from that. But yeah, incredible pick and very well put, Rebecca. Like, yeah, got a bit misty-eyed thinking about Henry there.
Me too.
Yeah, I was just sat there, just quietly being like, "Oh, what a guy!"
I know. Just hide behind the pop shield, like, oh.
Oh, it's not fair. You guys can see me wherever I move because my pop shield is below my webcam.
Yeah,
you guys can both hide.
You got to move that up. It lets you
It's
high.
gonna have to go quite high up, to be honest. You can't see my setup from here.
I could do
Anyway,
I could do the Ash Ketchum thing when he like.
Oh yeah,
he
Oh
cries.
yeah,
when,
the hiding
when...
behind the cap.
I can do that.
I just have to pull a blanket over my head. It's gonna be really obvious.
I'm just cold.
Rachel, what is your second and our final pick for this episode?
My second and final pick for the episode is Kentucky Route Zero. You'd have to include that. I
kind of want to.
You kind of feel like, I think, so Kentucky Route Zero was my immediate first choice. It's my favorite game of all time. It's my favorite indie. I have such a very personal, kind of like with you guys as well, like personal relationship with this game in particular, just because of the way it came out and stuff. It's like, do you guys ever like, when you talk about a game that you love, and sometimes you're like, I'm scared that I won't do this game justice, or I like will leave out some like important part of it, or because in
Every
my
time
soul,
I open my mouth, don't worry.
Yeah, same.
in my soul, feel that about this game. Like I fucking love this game. So Kentucky Route Zero was developed by Cardboard Computer. They kickstarted it back in 2011. The first chapter released in 2013, and then they released 5 chapters over like 7 years. So the last one came out in 2021. That's when the collection came out. And so I think for many people like myself who played the first chapter and didn't realize they'd have to wait 7 years for the rest of the game, it was kind of like this thing that would come in and out of your life over different periods of time. Like,
yeah.
So you'd play the first chapter, I'd be at uni, and then it'd be great. And then I'd be out of uni and a new chapter would come along. And then I'd be moving out and then another chapter. Like, it was something that was very fleeting. And I'm going to get poetic about this because Kentucky Route Zero is a poetic game in its nature. The story is about a antiques delivery guy called Conway. He's told he has to deliver something to 5 Dogwood Drive, which is somewhere on this route in Kentucky called the Zero, which he soon begins to realize is like the Zero is like an underground system of caves in which this ethereal highway runs through. This game is very surreal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bizarre in nature. So he sets off, and the idea of the game is it's basically a massive road trip throughout Kentucky where you meet different people. Some stay, some go. Although it's quite magical, realist, and surreal in certain aspects, this game, very much like last year's Citizen Sleeper or Norco, it's very similar to Norco. It's about these people who are trying to live through like economic struggle in Kentucky, and you meet these people, these drifters, these nobodies, and they tell their stories, and they just drift in and out of the story you play. And it's really good. It's a point and click adventure, but this might put a lot of people off. There's not actually many choices to be made. It offers you choices. What would you like to name your dog? Where would you want to go? Like you're given dialogue options, but ultimately, nothing you do matters. The decision you make do not impact the story. The game might pose a question to you about a character, because you play as Conway, but also your options can be reactions to what someone else has said. And so you can kind of mold those people in very personal ways. So like something might come up, like about their past, and you can decide that they're not over a lost lover, or they are over a lost lover. Like, they've made mistakes in their lives, or they haven't. And I just think this kind of character system where you kind of mold these people that you meet, it's very melancholy, but ultimately these people are also kind of hopeful. So yeah, and I don't know, I just played the first chapter when I was in uni, I don't know, 22 or whatever, 21. And yeah, here I am, 29, just like, it's stuck with me. It's just a game that has just stuck with me for like years. And I've not played anything else like it. When it came out in 2013 to now, I have not played anything like Kentucky Route Zero. Like,
wow.
It's so unusual. And it has its flaws, for sure. Yeah. It can be very insular. Because the chapters release at different times, it's a bit disjointed. It can get really caught up in its own mythos as well. Like, you're just like, I don't understand what's going on. No one's going to explain it to me. And I think that's what put a lot of people off. It's very slow as well. There's a lot of dialogue. Sure, there's like places you move around and everything, but it's not going to be the game for everyone, and that's totally okay. But yeah, it's just this really insular, I think is the word that I would describe. It's just like very inward. I think everyone who plays it will have a different reaction to it, whether that be like, this game is not for me at all, or oh my god, I see myself like in this game. I feel for these characters. Like, it's just a great game. Very unusual, but like, it's got to go in the vault. Like, there's just nothing else like it. And I don't know. It was RPS's game of the year when it came out. I think when the collection came out as well. So RPS people like it. So I have them behind me. But yeah, I don't know. it's just great. I really love it.
Insular is a very interesting word to use for a game, right? And
yeah. This is not someone I can recommend to like Obra Dinn. I'm like, you play it. Like Firewatch, I'm like, you play this game. Kentucky Route Zero, I don't think I would, unless like in this format where I get to speak about it at length. I could not really recommend it to like just off the bat like I can with other games. Like, but it is just
how interesting.
There's just moments in it that I just think about. I return to and I think about all the time.
Wow.
And it's so unusual because you'll be dealing with these people who are very grounded realities. People who, you know, this is Americana essentially. So it's people who are in debt or they have gambling problems, alcoholism. Like, there's all these very grounded topics, but because it's surrealist, there are like moments of like it's just fucking weird. I'll just put it straight up. It's fucking weird. Like, there'll be like androids at one point. There's a giant eagle at another point. It's just like, at one point you're like clicking through lyrics and then someone will sing what you've chosen. Like, it's bizarre, but also incredible. It's so good.
I've heard it described as Lynchian, which I think my understanding is that it's a little bit Twin Peaks inspired. Clearly, I have not played it. I am actually down to write our Game of the Year Revisited article on it.
Yes.
So hopefully I'll be playing it. Well, actually, I will be playing it quite soon, or probably handing that article off to Rachel if I don't manage to get around to it. No, I do really, really want to play it because it was on a list a few years ago. It came up on a list of Twin Peaks inspired games, and I've been slowly working my way through that list, and Kentucky Route Zero is the next one on it anyway, so I'm like...
It's interesting with Twin Peaks because a lot of people throw that around. Oh, Twin Peaks inspired, Twin Peaks this, Twin Peaks that. And it was funny because I was like, should I say that this game is inspired by Twin Peaks, because it's a term that's thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And I would say vibes-wise it is.
Yes.
In terms of like its content and the people it follows, probably not. But this idea of like Americana, small town, weird vibes that they're not just random. It's a surrealism that makes sense within the world it is. It's not just like, oh, this is weird. It's like, no, this makes sense and it punches home a certain point, which I think Twin Peaks does really well. So definitely in that way.
That's kind of why I think maybe Lynchian is the more appropriate term, because Twin Peaks inspired can just mean that it takes place in the American Northwest,
God.
really, can't it? So, like...
People throw that term around so much. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Just because you have a weird detective who likes pie, it is not Twin Peaks.
Referencing Twin Peaks does not inherently make something Lynchian, but it sounds to me like Kentucky Route Zero is a Lynchian game.
Yeah, you're right, for sure.
By that logic, there's only one Twin Peaks-like game, and it's Deadly Premonition, a game that's literally a rip-off.
Well, indeed. Yes. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of everything is inspired by either Twin Peaks or The Shining, but sometimes The Shining is just literally that carpet pattern, and that's how it's The Shining inspired. You know, I'm like, there's a whole other discussion to be had about that. Because I will play anything that is inspired by either of those, but there is a wide gap in how you choose to work with those inspirations, I think.
Yeah, like that's why I was a bit like I didn't want to throw it out there too much, but like I don't mind that. But ultimately, if you can't describe what's good about your game without referring to other very famous pieces of media.
Yeah, indeed.
That's like review 101 as well. Whenever someone's like, this is like this, usually I'll just cut that out. I'm like, get out of here. Because one, it's not an insult to the devs, but also it's like, we're going to describe it in a way in which suits it rather than just be like, oh, Kentucky Route Zero is like Twin Peaks. Like, I'm like, snatch that out. I'm like, get out of here. Poof.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, vibes wise, yeah, correct. Like 1000% Lynchian is a very, although Lynch can sometimes go off the fucking rails. Like that guy.
Absolutely.
What does he do? He does like that deep meditation. What is that called? When some of his ideas, he goes into like a deep meditation. Hold on.
Does he?
Yeah, it's called something. He's written books about it and everything. What the fuck is it called? What kind of meditation does he do? Transcendental meditation.
Ah.
I've never even heard of this.
So he has this idea, well, I guess that's what transcendental meditation is about. Short rant. You have like a baseline for consciousness. Think of it like whatever. And then the idea with transcendental meditation is that you pass through that and you reach like the deep wells of your consciousness where everything's a bit fucked up. And that's where he gets a lot of his shit from. I mean, whether you believe that or not, but whatever.
Well, that's the thing with David Lynch is it could all be performance art. Everything that man does on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but at the same time, transcendental meditation, why not?
Yeah.
What's that meme where someone's talking to David Lynch and they're like, elaborate further? And David Lynch is like, no.
Yes, yes. So yeah, for sure. That is the last pick. Boot it into the vault.
Going in the vault.
Pop it in the pit. Yep. Put it in the display case and let's push the door closed and turn the valve and reset the little
wheel.
clicky thing where you've got the numbers on. We'll reset our password to 1, 2, 3, 4.
We all have a key. We definitely all have a key, and we need to all three of us be here to realize.
Keep it round our necks.
Yeah.
If one of us ever dies, it'll launch a mystery. We've got to try and discover where we were buried to access the Indiescovery Vault. Well
we
done,
all have
gang.
our own separate mysteries. Rebecca's is Firewatch based. Mine is Obra Dinn. And Liam, you can have either Hypnospace or Paradise Killer.
I mean, let's be fair. As someone terminally online, it would definitely revolve around the internet.
I would like for mine to be just going into the woods for months as a remedy to
cool.
terminally online.
Yeah, we have literally the opposite.
Yeah,
and Rachel's on a boat.
Get me away from this damned internet for the foreseeable.
So very quickly before we dive into our hyperfixations, can we just do like a quick fire of what games maybe like passed through our brain when we were thinking about our top two? Like, because me and Liam you said Death's Door, right? Which is also a very good pick.
Yeah, Death's Door was very high on my list. I
also had actually What Remains of Edith Finch was one of mine.
That was one of mine as well.
Yeah, very good.
Night in the Woods.
Yeah.
Factorio and Minecraft were quite high. Minecraft's a funny one these days.
Yes,
but yeah. Hotline Miami for my sins. These might come up in future episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
I've had to pull up a Google Doc because my brain lives in Google Docs.
Yes, get that doc up.
But I did have loads. I'll do a couple of honourable mentions then.
Yes,
I had Journey. I absolutely adored.
Good one. Yep.
Hellblade. Does Hellblade count? I feel like that was independently
at the
published.
time it was.
They got bought out after that. You know,
it
did
was an
its
indie
thing,
game
right?
at the time.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on here that I'm like not as sure where they sit anymore.
Just shout them out, whatever. I mean,
oh yeah, this is a long list. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just skimming down for some interesting ones, because this was the problem. This is like I had my top 2, and then I had like the next 20, and then it was just a real panic. I mean, there's stuff like I mentioned last week. Boyfriend Dungeon is a recent one, but one that I think is gonna stick with me for a while.
One.
I similarly like A Year of Springs, which is the one that we talked about.
Yep.
So like, just because
yeah.
it was really moving.
I'd chuck Frostpunk on there for me. Frostpunk is incredible.
It's a good one.
If not emotionally damaging on every level.
I'd chuck
A bad
Parkitect would be on my list as well, I think.
Okay.
Like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Ooh, Devotion. I love Devotion, the horror game.
Devotion is a good shout. A Short Hike is something that I've got down here.
Yes!
As well. There's another lovely forest-based one.
Never played it. It's a real blind
it's so
spot
lovely.
for me.
That's another one that you can do in an afternoon as well. So
Yeah.
it's really, really nice.
I should really go for it.
It's quite a cozy
That's
Switch
lovely.
game. It's nice to be like,
Is it?
yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, not to be, don't play it on PC, but also it's a cute
Yeah.
Switch game for cozy times.
On that,
In
that
bed.
OLED
Yeah.
screen is pretty nice. Yeah. Feels like a good one for that.
As a Steam Deck owner, you almost certainly own it from a Humble Bundle and don't realise.
Oh, I probably
Ooh,
do,
yes.
don't I?
Because I own it
Should
about
we
3
see?
times from various bundles, so or itch
I
bundle.
do. I own it. Apparently, I bought it in 2020. Yep.
Yes.
There we
Yep. There you go.
Done. Ooh, Oxenfree. Oxenfree, I
Ooh.
love. Ooh,
That's a
any
good
of the
one.
Super Giant, just all the Super Giant games can go in for me.
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
What?
Bastion especially. Yeah.
Every single one, all 4.
Should we? Bastion was my first indie game, I think. So should we do like an episode about our first indie games?
Yeah, that'd be great.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I will double check if it's Monster Prom again, but I'll take another crack at Monster Prom. I'm not anti that.
I could listen to you talk about it again. Yeah.
Oh, I'd
Yeah.
love to. I don't feel I did it justice this time, so I will revisit and refine.
Well, I want to play it, so you did a good job there.
Ah,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Is
Oh,
it
yeah.
time?
I think it's
for-
yeah.
time.
Should we move on?
I could be on this list for. I put the list away because otherwise I will just be reciting the list.
For our hyperfixations, and we have
Hooray.
music. I only like it's nice the music actually, Liam. You put when we have the hyperfixations bit, like the little
You
segue.
like it?
I love
Yeah,
it.
it's quite chill. I quite like how it's a little bit unhinged as well, which I think
Yes!
suits the section.
Yes, that's exactly why I like it. You know what? I'm gonna go first.
Ooh.
Because that's just
I
the
like
kind of
it.
person I am. Yeah, so my hyperfixation is Dimension 20, which is a D&D role-playing show which Hayden got me into. Like,
I was
yeah.
going to say, Hayden will be so pleased to hear this.
Well, okay, so he didn't get me into it, but he was the one who was like, you should because they have a service where you pay monthly and then you can watch all of them. I think
Ah.
I only saw their first campaign that's on YouTube for free, so I watched that. And then Hayden was like, "There's more. For £5 a month, there's more. You can do it." And I was like, "No, I don't have the time. I don't have the time." And he was like, "Okay." And then I had that 2 weeks when I was ill. And so then I subscribed, and oh my God, I've seen all of them. There's like maybe 7 or 8 of these long campaigns that are out like 20 hours, I would say, per campaign. And I've seen all of them. I got obsessed. I got majorly into it.
That's
Brennan Lee
incredible.
Mulligan is a god.
I love
god.
Brennan Lee Mulligan. He's very,
So
very
good. So yeah, I saw Fancy High. I saw Escape from Bloodkeep and Sleeping City. My favorite is A Crown of Candy, which is a Game of Thrones food inspired campaign where each like region of this map is like inspired by a certain food group, and it was the drama was unreal. I loved it so much. I saw Starstruck Odyssey, and right now they're doing Never After, which is like a weird fairy tale. Again, Brennan Lee Mulligan, God, absolute like, how does he do it? I just don't understand. And recently, literally yesterday, they announced that Matt Mercer of Critical Role is going to guest as a GM on Dimension 20, and I'm losing it. I'm over it. I can't deal with it. Because, like, he's been on Dimension 20 before as a player, but as a GM, losing it. So, yeah, I'm honestly, like, Hayden's the one as well. I'm always like chilling on my couch after work and he like Twitter DMs me like, oh, did you see this announcement? And I lose my shit. He enables me. He enables me. Because I've not caught up with Critical Role and he's like, why aren't you watching? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm watching the thing you told me to do. I'm doing that. And he's like, yeah, but you've got like 50 hours of Critical Role to catch up on. And I'm like, I will get to it. I swear I will. Just like when I'm done with this 50 hours of this other D&D podcast, like, But yeah,
Wow.
I'm obsessed. It's so good. I think I said that a lot. It's so good. It's so good. But it is. So
It sounds it. It sounds
It does
incredible.
sound it. It's a portion of the internet I have no experience with, but I am. My friends have wrangled me and friend of the podcast Yolly into starting a D&D campaign next
Ooh.
weekend. So
Hell yeah.
maybe I've got all this to look forward to in my future.
Fascinated to hear how that goes.
Yeah,
yes. Let us know. It's cool. It's so much fun. It's
me too.
honestly great.
It seems great. Yeah.
And like watching like professionals do it is just like, it's on another level. But then
Yeah.
everyone's expectations, people have watched the show and people's expectations about their DMs and GMs have like gone through the roof because they expect like this level.
Yeah,
Like-
I've read about that. It's called the Matt Mercer effect. It's literally
Yes!
got a name and yeah.
That's really
God
funny.
damn it. Yeah. But yeah, that's what
Wow.
I'm hyper-fixating about. How about you,
Very
Rebecca?
interesting.
Oh, hello. Mine is really, really short this week, actually, because I am still, obviously, the true answer is still Danganronpa 2. I'm about halfway through. It's like, I don't play
wow.
games
Ooh.
quickly, so this is how you know that I'm between a third of the way and halfway through, because I'm just
damn.
that into it. But there's no way to discuss it, because one of us has played it, one of us hasn't played it, one of us is halfway through, so I'm not even going to touch on that. What I am going to say is, have you guys, this is totally different, by the way. Totally different from my usual hyperfixations.
Ooh.
But have you guys ever eaten mushroom ketchup?
No.
No. What?
Because I tried
What?
it for the first time the other day and now I'm obsessed and I try to put it in every meal that I make.
Oh my god, I'm googling this.
It isn't actually ketchup, right? The name is misleading. It's more of like a soy sauce consistency. But it has that kind of I would use it in situations where you would use like a soy sauce or a Worcestershire sauce, but it's just got that little extra bit of umami taste because of the mushroom.
Ooh.
And I'm
Ooh.
obsessed. I'm putting it in like bologneses and pies and just anything I make. Now I look at it and I go, can I put mushroom ketchup in that though? Because it's really tasty.
That is such a
Good
good
recommendation.
pick.
Good
Yes.
recommendation.
And
yes.
it's vegan as well, Rachel. It's vegan as
Hell
well. So
yeah!
it's
I'm
This
gonna
is
buy
amazing.
the shit out of that.
It's
I did
so
not know
good.
that. I'm
It's
so excited.
So tasty. It was like an impulse buy from Tesco a few weeks ago, and I saw it in the cupboard, and I was like, "Oh, I hope that's still good." And then I was like, "Okay, it's good until like August next year, but let's just put it in something. Let's just go crazy." And then yeah, it's absolutely delicious, and it's one of those things where you like just add it to any meal, and it really kicks up the flavor. So yeah,
Oh,
that is.
I'm gonna try that.
It is fair to say I'm a bit fixated on it. To be fair.
Yeah, unsurprising.
Delicious.
You know what I've been obsessed with recently?
Mm?
Pulled shiitake mushrooms. It's like
Ooh, yeah.
a substitute for beef in
Never
like stir
tried.
fries and stuff. Goodness me. Oh, it's so nice. It's
You have
so
to try
good.
that now. Amazing.
Yeah, I'd really recommend it.
Yeah, but no one was expecting like the hot mushroom chat in this episode. But there we go. That's mine.
I'm glad we're having it.
Hell yeah.
About you, Liam?
My hyperfixation is also very quick because I'm sort of in between loads of things. And I made the mistake in one of the first episodes of recommending tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow before I'd finished it. And now I've finished it. I wouldn't have
Oh, yeah?
recommended it.
Oh, no.
So now
Oh no, I'm
I'm
reading
going to
it at the
recommend
moment.
things when I'm done. Oh, are you?
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to
Oh,
have
yeah.
a chat afterwards.
Yeah, I finished it recently as well.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I quite
nice.
enjoyed it,
yeah,
though.
let's all get together. And, did
Yes.
you like it?
It was okay. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it goes a bit
that's
rogue
probably
in
where I'm at as
like
well.
the last third, but
Oh, intriguing.
Yes,
I'm not very
it really
far
does.
in, so I can't wait to see where this goes.
We will reconvene and chat privately about this. So
Mm-hmm.
my hyperfixation is a YouTuber that I've loved for a long time, and I just want to give him a shout out. He doesn't need a shout out from me. He's got hundreds of thousands of subs. He is a guy called Brutal Moose, and he does a lot of what I would describe as cozy videos. He started off as like a classic video game reviewer about 10 years ago, and now he's sort of transitioned into Half of it is in reviewing like American frozen microwave meals or cooking from cookbooks from the 70s. And half of it is him going to arcades and just talking about his time at the arcade. Or he reviews malls, which is inherently fascinating to me as like a British person. He'll be like, oh yeah, I went to this mall and they have like shops outside. It's really unique. And I'm there like, my goodness, that's unique. That's incredible.
Wow.
But his stuff is just like proper. This is probably going to really paint me in a weird light. It's like good bath watching content. Like,
I know, I get you. Totally
yeah,
get you.
like having a bath, you're like, I'm going to put on a bit of brittle mousse. Lovely, nice, chill vibes. Just soak in the tub, watch him talking about malls in America. Yes, please. That's healing to me. So yeah, brittle mousse, get him checked out. He seems like a sound lad and he makes cool things.
That's incredible. Also,
Lovely.
are you two bath people?
When I have the time.
I hate a bath, that's all. I'm just surprised. Absolutely not.
Why do you hate a bath?
I'd rather be in bed if I want to relax. Or on the couch.
Yeah. I'm a bath guy when I'm feeling ill. So I'm literally going to have a bath straight after this.
Yeah, fair.
Lemsip bath.
A Lemsip
bath is a classic.
Beard and
classic of the
Lemsips.
genre.
Right, okay, guess we're done. Let me do the outro.
Can we call it? Because we
we're
are
running
already
over.
20 minutes past our working day and nearly 2 hours into this recording.
I'm surprised Wizard hasn't come to annoy me for food. I thought he might make a little cameo, but he's just obviously sleeping.
Aw.
I do have a cat, I swear.
I don't believe it now.
I purposely left the door open so he could like scuttle up, but apparently not. Okay. So yeah, that's all for this episode. Thanks very much for listening to Indiescovery. Your support is really appreciated. It is massively important. If you'd like to get in touch with the three of us, you can do so by emailing your questions to podcast@rockpapershotgun.com. You can also chat to like-minded individuals about the wonders of PC gaming over on our Discord server. Link is in the show notes. If you'd like to support the pod, you can also do so by rating and reviewing us on iTunes. Please, it really helps out the podcast. So yeah, thanks in advance for that. If you could also tell your friends about the good times you've had with us, that would also be fabulous. For all your PC gaming needs, you can go to rockpapershotgun.com or find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So until next time, folks, it's goodbye from us. Goodbye.
Bye.